I did it again. I just came up with a new word. Hey, it's mikesmastermind.com. Mike's Mastermind, and it's Mike. Yeah, getting towards the end of June as I'm recording this 2023. And lately just been re-examining and rereading some of my writing, and this morning was focused on Morb's Baedeck. So if you're not familiar with any of my ideas, you might want to go to mikesmastermind.com and listen to a few more of these recordings, or you can go to grandtourideas.com to get an overall picture, a sampling of these different taste delights. All right, well, so in writing about the Baedeck, which is literally is theory of mind, which exists already in the literature, I'm looking at the Baedeck as examining the filtering process in which an entity that I describe as the morb, you have to go back and check what I'm talking about, which is a projected artificial sense of identity, and then how it thinks and processes and the way it operates in the world is revealed. And the word I came up with is called ARF. ARF, yep. ARF, because I like acronyms, which stands for Arena Ratio Fields. Now, I just added it, and it's at the bottom of my Morb's Baedeck writing, and you can find this particular article. It's an Action Online academic paper Google page at Baedeck, BIDECK.masstrance.com. That's right, Baedeck, BIDECK.masstrance.com. Yeah, about society and hypnosis and how we wake up. That's my work. To become an ultra being philosopher. All right, anyways, let's go to talk about what this is, because I think it's kind of important, and I relate a lot of my conceptualization as these ideas develop and I come into the fruition or the realization of these things. Yesterday I talked about thought experiments and the German word Gedenken experiment, and Gedenken is a German word, thought, and how we think about things. And so in this regard, I am attributing Weltschloss, another German word combination I put together. Weltschloss just simply means world building, and my philosophical examination of how we're dwelling in our constructed reality and how we perceive things. So the ARF, these arena ratio field examination, will help us sort of see through it. Anyway, you can find more about the Gedenkens on mikesmastermind.com. I just put it up yesterday. And I think that could be its own podcast too, and I talk about that. Like, we could just do thought experiments, and that would be a podcast. Okay, back to Mike's Mastermind here, talking about the ARF, and you can find this at bideck.masstrance.com. So, arena ratio fields are interpretations of transpondance and identity relationships that occur within the metasphere, which is the social atmosphere of you and I engaging, that then through this process presents qualifying merits and our choice responses, and therefore the treatment to the perceived other. So how I consider you and how you're considering me. Well, this is the Baedeck, or how we are examining things through our beliefs, our intentions, the decisions we're making in this regard, the directives. And this is coming across creating sort of, if you could say, a vibratory, some kind of sense that's felt between us. And it could be something that's intuitively just in your thought process, where I talk about the ego, this sense of projected self, igoism.com, igoism.com, which is a selfie of the mind. But what's presented in this realm is sort of an ARF. And again, ARF, I'm calling it. I just came up with this like 10 minutes ago. Although I've had a sense of this for a while, I decided it needed defining, and therefore it needed its own word. ARF stands for Arena Ratio Fields. And yes, it's kind of like the ARF of a dog and a barking. It's like, well, what's happening? The dog's barking for a reason. What's some sense perception going on? Could be just a dog barking. But maybe there's some stranger you walking by, and this ARF is representative of Arena Ratio Fields. Now, the ARF can incorporate another area of my writing called cringe factors. You can go to cringefactors.com, which talks about perceived status and hierarchy of power, personal projection, and this has an effect on the regard and how, therefore, we will engage others based on our perception of them, whether or not we're conscious of that behavior. Interesting. So we can look at ARF and define arena as the playground of the mind. It's the imagination of what's perceived. And in this case, it's the us and our situation. You and I, we have a situation. And it could be quite a large arena, but in this particular ARF, ARF, the arena ratio field, it's going to allow for some variables, but also embedded in it, based on rules of society and engagement, there's going to be limitations restricting how we go about this, perhaps, right? I may or may not be able to just go up to you and hug you, particularly if you're a stranger. Hey, what's up? And then if there's some situation that needs to be resolved, something that's gone on in the past, or we don't know quite what the agreement is or what the situation is, well, there might be some predefining rules, and this is going to kind of sort of define the level of engagement you and I are going to have. So there might be some presupposed agreements or things that need to be clarified. But whatever it is, there's a certain reality that we've come to know about our relationship, our situation, the boundaries of, and perhaps issues that have been in the past restricted, that is, and through this limitation we've never been able to go further. This is an ARF. This is an arena ratio field. Now, it's a fancy way of saying that in the arena, there's something that's become, in our rationale, the ratio of things maybe just in piecemeal, or a slice of the pie that's interpreted. And in this regard, it's in a field of consideration. And in this mental construct, and also in the relationship and the emotional boundary of how things are considered, this is going to allow whatever to occur, and then we're having to deal with it. And the treatment of which is what the ARF is. So the ARF is arenas in the ratio field for consideration. And again, arenas can be quite large. However, we rationalize and often narrow our perspective to the immediacy and the importance of what we consider in a situation or in a person that we encounter, and this is the ratio. And in this regard, we respond to these images, and these are related to, or sense of things, in the TWA, thoughts, words, and actions, that are related to topics relevant or issues that are restricted or related only to our ARF concerns. And this is the field. All right, that's all I wrote so far about it. How are you today? It's like, how are you today? How ARF you today? ARF, ARF, arena ratio fields. A fancy way of saying how we interpret the space between us, the metasphere, and how we are behaving and going to react in it based on perceptions and sort of this energy. Once perhaps explored and defined, will allow us to be a bit more free and agile in engaging in our relationship and responding in ways that expand the Weltslash, the world-dwelling experience. And this is my area of exploration. I am Mike'sMastermind.com. Hope you enjoyed it. There's more there for you if you want to explore. Mike'sMastermind.com and GrandTourIdeas.com. I'm Mike Ratner, the host and progenitor of these wild ARF ideas. ARF. Thank you for tuning in. ARF, Arena Ratio Fields.